Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Joy, Love, and Healing Podcast. I'm Jay Bradley, and I'm here with a dear friend who has amazing lipstick on today, my friend Rebekah. And we are going to have a great conversation about astrology, but she has so many other gifts and I'll call them superpowers that I just want to dig in and have a great conversation. So first, I'd love to tell you a little bit about Rebekah. Rebekah helps people to connect with the force of love within them, everywhere around them, by whatever name they choose to call it. Her favorite tools for this are astrology, music, meditation, prayer, energy work, and ritual, which I love. All incredible for divine connection, self-knowledge, and understanding. Rebekah is both a professional singer and music educator, as well as a professional traditional astrologer, podcast host, and modern spiritual explorer. By the way, I love that. Modern spiritual explorer. Hello, my friend.
Hi, darling. So good to see you. Thank you for having me on.
You too. Yes, wonderful to have you. And I realize people listening to the podcast can't see your lipstick, but you look amazing today.
Thank you so much. You look amazing as always. Fountain of youth. Fountain of youth. What is in the water?
Well, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you. So it's a little secret. Yeah.
Breath work, maybe.
So breath work, healing, all sorts of things. Yeah. I love it. You actually did an amazing, I just want to dive in and just like focus on astrology because number one, we haven't talked about astrology here on the podcast. And what I love, and you said it in your reading, something around like, it just seems like a beautiful mix of head and heart to me, astrology, because it's sort of mathematical or very mathematical in a sense. And I love that you have both sides of you as a healer. You have this sort of very logical, sensible, worldly side, and then you have this whole mystical side too, which I love as a balance. So tell me about, like, first of all, why astrology and, why it calls to you. Anything you want to share?
I have always kind of been drawn to what is beyond what is beyond the surface. And when I was a teenager, I remember reading about the Aries archetype in an astrology book and being like, oh my God, I felt so validated. I was like, I'm not a bitch, I'm just an Aries. Because everything was described so perfectly, but it's all like an archetypal energy is like a pattern of consciousness. It's sort of tendencies or ways that an energy expresses itself. And there's like powerfully good ways you can do that. And also everything has a shadow side, but it's very neutral. And so it just resonated so deeply with me. And everything I read, for the most part, with a few exceptions, because, astrology is not just your basic sun sign at all. There's so much more to it. So much more to it. But my chart is very Aries dominant. I have the sun in Aries. I have the ascendant in Aries. I have Mercury in Aries. So for me, I was like, wow, that is amazing. And I got so much clarity on what was moving through me and just my natural tendencies and what was happening, because it was defined for me very clearly in this book. And I was like, okay, these aren't just sort of like vague, nebulous experiences I'm having as a human. This is a way that this energy is expressing itself through me. These are my natural tendencies. And so given some definitions, I was just able to see myself more clearly, understand myself more clearly, and I had a lot more compassion for myself through some of the shadow manifestations, and also understood a little bit more clearly how I might be able to use this energy or work this energy or live this energy in a healthier way. Especially the shadow traits of Aries, which can be very self-centered, very impatient, interrupting people, butting in, acting first, thinking later, angry, hot-headed, like all of these, there's so many wonderful sides of Aries as well, like leadership qualities, courage, honesty, like vitality, strength, defender of the weak, all of the, wonderful qualities. But for my shadow side, I was able to just see that a lot more clearly too, and be like, wow, okay, this is something that I can bring self-awareness to this. And from self-awareness,
Yes.
you have this new sense of empowerment. You might have a little bit more choice, I guess, or you can take a pause and say, ooh, do I want to be that reactive? Because now I'm really understanding better that this is a trait that, not just because someone told me or I read it in a book, but when I read it in the book, I recognized that immediately as being very true for me. I'm like, oh yes, I am very reactive. I'm a very reactive person. I've been experiencing this my whole life. And just understanding that the positive side, for example, of, being reactive also is like call to action, like not someone who's just going to sit on the sidelines and be a doormat or stand for injustice. Like there are good things about this energy, but also, bringing self-awareness to it, you have a bit more power of choice about how you move through the world. And so I have found it to be incredibly validating, which in and of itself is just healing. To feel understood.
Yeah, well, that awareness. Understood.
And empowering to be able to, use it in the healthiest way, or to maybe amplify or lean into some of those more positive qualities, and to pause and breathe through, and try to bring more loving self-awareness to some of my more challenging tendencies of that energy, if that makes any sense. And so that's just the beginning.
Oh, that makes complete.
That's a long answer.
That makes complete sense. No, I'm all about gentleness. I'm all about, I've been so hard on myself throughout my life too. And always looking at those negative traits or the shadow, like what's wrong with me? Why can't I snap out of it? But it brings you an understanding that, okay, maybe I was born with certain tendencies, right? And it's normal. And like you said, acknowledging it is half the battle, I think, just recognizing, okay, and what can we do about this? And how can I be more gentle on myself? So, yeah. And it's so interesting because, like you said, you have a lot of Aries. Well, apparently my rising is Aries.
You have a lot of Aries. You have more Aries than I have.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm a Pisces, by the way.
But you are a Pisces,
my sun sign.
And so that really trumps a lot. That really softens. A lot.
Yeah, does the water put out the fire?
Yes.
Simmers
I wouldn't
say it a little.
It's just not, it balances, right? Yeah, absolutely.
So in order to do someone's chart accurately, they need to know the time they were born. Is that right?
They do. I feel like
not everybody knows that.
It doesn't mean that you can't get any information. I've done lots of readings for people who just cannot get a birth time. They've called the hospital. There is no my dad, I don't have a record for him. The hospital doesn't exist anymore. And I can still see a lot of things because the moment that somebody was born, in any given day, most of the planets will still be relatively in the same place. The moon moves really fast, and it does change signs every 2.5 days. So some days you don't know where the moon is. That's pretty important. And the ascendant, which is really important. So that is the sign that was rising over the eastern horizon. And that changes by 1 degree every 4 minutes. And that's huge. That's huge.
Oh, wow.
So we are both Aries rising. So if, we get a little bit later in the day or even an hour or two later, and everything changes depending on the season, how fast a sign will rise. You get a different rising sign. And that's
so
like the filter. The rest of the chart is sort of filtered through that. The planets are all placed in different areas of the life. Some of them may have sort of more emphasis, depending on where they're placed, or be a little quieter. So it's extremely technical, actually. It doesn't mean there is no art or sort of mystical side to it. There very much is, but it's very technical. So if you don't know the time you were born, you cannot really determine the ascendant or the positions of the planets in the houses. So there is a process called rectification that a lot of astrologers do, where they go back through the different periods of your life and they can say they can determine what time you were born. I don't trust it.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't. I don't know, but
yeah. So for those people going on to their monthly astrology reading, like I would go and read Pisces. I mean, I guess there's some accuracy there, but really it probably isn't as accurate as we would like, right? What else should we be reading our moon or our
you want to
ascendant
read
as
your
well?
ascendant for sure if you know it.
Okay.
So the sun and the ascendant. And that's the thing. My very first astrology teacher is a wonderful woman named Rebecca Gordon. And she said, astrology works in layers. And so, even if you don't know your birth time, we'll often put the sun, whatever sign the sun was in, as the rising sign. Rising sign and ascendant are synonyms. They mean the same thing. We'll just put the sun sign on the ascendant or rising, and it will still be accurate to some extent because it's just layers of things happening there. But I find as an astrologer, I tend to lean most heavily on techniques that I have been wowed by with my own experience, and my sun and my ascendant are the same. So I don't know what it's like to have a different sun sign and than my ascendant, which most people have. Like, it's a little more rare to have your sun be conjunct your ascendant. So, but either way, you want to read your horoscope for the sun and the ascendant if you can. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Or preferably getting a really nice custom reading from someone like you who can really give you, I loved, we had a reading the other day, and look, I know there's no set predictions in the world as well, right? We all love to think, someone can tell us what's going to happen, but like, how predictive can astrology be for people looking to get some guidance?
It blows my mind. So I would never tell someone that I can predict exactly what's going to happen in their life, but what I can do is give them the themes and the timing. Because it is math. So, and I've been more and more blown away all the time by new technique that I've learned called annual profections, which is a recently recovered ancient Hellenistic astrology technique. They recovered it in the last 20 years by translating an ancient Greek text. And this is, just check out Chris Brennan, who runs the Astrology podcast. He is a wonderful, magnificent astrologer and researcher, and there's a lot of information about these types of things. But this technique is in addition to following where the planets are now in the sky, and it's just floored me. But what I wind up doing is giving, and I haven't sent you your dates yet, but I will. So you can test it out and look back over the year next year and kind of see what happens. But I look at just certain alignments that I wasn't looking for before. And I'd heard about this technique a while back and just was kind of like, whatever. And it wasn't until I experienced it in my own life where I'm like, that's amazing. So, but what the caveat is that I often, even with knowing the themes, if I were trying to predict like exactly what was going to happen in someone's life, it would be very difficult. And oftentimes when it does happen, you're like, oh, of course, this is exactly what those archetypes are mixed together, but I did think of it in advance. And this is why horoscopes kind of suck a lot of the time. I find Susan Miller's to be like the best, which a lot of people don't give her the credit because she's very mainstream, but her horoscopes are just so good. They're the only ones actually that I really find for a basic horoscope to be amazing. But a specific example.
Astrology Zone.
Yeah, Astrology Zone. A specific example that I got just a few days ago is a client of mine who shall remain nameless. I gave her a list of dates for the year ahead. No other astrologers do this because it just takes so long, but I'm kind of type A. And I looked at a particular planet that was more significant for her this year based on this timing technique and when it was going to make a nice aspect to a really nice other planet. And I was like, the themes for this is a really amazing day, give or take a couple weeks on either side. I generally do find that the date that I give is pretty spot on. Like it's that day or the day before or after, or it's very, very close because it's just math. It's like the degrees of how the planets are talking to each other. And I was like, the themes for this are love and significant partnerships and relationships. Could be business, but could be love. There's also a friendship element because of the houses that were coming in. And this client had been with a partner for years and years. And she sent me a message. She's like, I got a ring on my finger, So I was like, this is a year when you would see like a significant, maybe development in a committed partnership anyway, with Jupiter moving through the 7th. But on this day, and I just love that. I love that sometimes
so she got engaged.
It takes a whole year sometimes for me the client comes back and they're like, wow, it's amazing. All the transit lists you gave me, but there are things like that constantly. And so
and you have so much wisdom around this, because you brought up stuff in my reading. I mean, even around pets and and also possible partnership or marriage, but also international real estate, which is like, how specific is that, for example? So you've obviously done your research, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah, there's certain parts of the chart that rule international and foreign affairs. And for you, you have the ruler of your home and roots sector in that sector of the chart. So it's no surprise to me that you live in a country other than where you were born. Your chart ruler is also there. So this is a lot of me dropping lingo. I don't want to lose people, but there are just like two really, really big things in your chart that point to that sort of international sector of your chart. In addition, there's additional layers of teaching and spirituality in that sector of your chart too. So look no further.
Isn't that amazing? So thank God I'm doing the right thing. Well, that is why we're drawn to certain careers, certain relationships. So I'm curious though about, we got to talk about this openly. First of all, there's two things I want to bring up about spirituality. One is, is it predestined or do we have free will? And I know, in my opinion, it's a little bit of both. But how much can astrology also predict, important things in our life at what time they show up? It sounds like it can be pretty accurate.
This is a huge point of debate. Right off the bat, I will say I do not have the answer. I do not know. My current leading theory is that there is a mix of both. In addition to astrology, I'm also an energy healer. I'm into the quantum stuff. I've had profound experiences with like Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and prayer and meditation. And so my personal belief is that astrology is one layer. I don't know this though. This is absolutely not fact. This is just like, so far, this is like the best I got. But astrology blows me away. Like the transits never miss. They never miss. Get into a fight with my babe, like, ooh, moon is like, it's like right opposing Saturn and Mars is on it. And it's just like, it's just amazing. And so I think that I see it as a weather forecast, that there are currents and conditions, but I don't know that those are leading us to exact outcomes. I think that it's highly likely that we have power of choice and that there's another element of divine like relationship and connection that can that opens things up within these transits, within this weather that we're experiencing astrologically, that everything is infinitely open. And actually I've started to do my monthly forecasts. I do an opening prayer, and just to help remind us all that whatever I'm saying in the forecast is, there's openness still within it to help us to remember the possibility that exists infinitely within all of this. And also with respect and honor of each person's own spiritual connection and belief system, because, everyone's a little different. But
especially if you're doing a group reading, it can be hard to
absolutely
appeal to everybody.
But, I'm hugely into what's called electional astrology. And that just doesn't have to do with politics. It means a particular electing a date and time where everything's lined up really nicely and you're like trying to surf the wave. You're like, ooh, like, let me like try to catch this wave to initiate something important during a good alignment, because many astrologers believe that that does have something to maybe some sort of impact or influence on how that event will unfold. I don't know. There are some astrologers that I respect very much that are just like, you can't control it. And I think to some extent we can't. Like, I was trying to get back to the United States because of these amazing alignments in April. I had elected a friend's wedding, and I was like, I had just gotten engaged. I'm like, we should try to get married in April. And I just didn't get that. I just didn't line up. And then, of course, the day Jupiter moves into Aries, which I have all this stuff in Aries, that's like the day that everything moves forward. It's just to the day. Sometimes it's so amazing. So I try to have a little bit of a dance between trusting there's a higher divine order, because all of the planets, even, it's like they're on some sort of like, they're on some sort of a divine cycle. Some, like, whatever your concept is of God or the universe or the unknown or the force of love, by whatever name you want to call it, everything is happening and we know so little. And so I can see the systems and the patterns and I can try to surf that, but I ultimately have to really respect that it's just a very small piece of information that I find so helpful. Like, it's so helpful.
Yeah.
But
right. Which is why we,
I still think we have choice.
It's why we choice, and we access all these beautiful healing modalities to help us through the process.
Yes, choice. So I'm wrapping it up. I know I'm a big talker. So
no, it's good.
I think we have choice, but I also, a big part of my work is to lean on the divine and ask for help. So I'm a big believer in miracles and transmutation. And that's stuff that I can't explain, but I work with that regularly as well. So within, say, a difficult transit, I will go into prayer. I'll go into meditation or what, and each person, it can look different for everybody what this looks like, but I ask for help and I always get it. So, it's anybody's guess. I always do. I mean, sometimes not the way I want it and not on my timeline. It's not like instantly I just get what I want. But things have gotten a lot better for me now that I've had enough I've been spoiled with external validation of the divine, which was missing from the first like 30 years of my life. And in the last 10 years, since I've had what I would call some real miracles, I have a level of trust that I feel very spoiled and blessed to have. And I remember what it was like to not have that. But I feel like when you have that trust, it's also along the lines of the law of attraction. Your vibration just has one of trust and certainty. And so things keep showing up. So it's a real mixed bag.
That's such an important topic. And that's a whole other podcast around trust. I think that is so key. That actually came up with a private client today around how he didn't trust because of earlier experiences in his life. And I get it. And I sometimes, lack trust in the divine too, when things don't show up the way I want. And it's constant work to stay connected, isn't it? I think, and
it's a practice.
Yeah. We're all learning, we're all growing. And, I just want to ask, because we had this conversation the other day and it's such an important one. I want to also go into this idea around, I got into healing work, healing myself first so that I could not have any more pain, right? So I could have just joy and bliss. And I really believed that was possible. I'm like, I'm going to get to this place of nirvana and everything's going to be so great. And, I do believe we can get there more of the time than, not doing the work. But this is an important conversation because the pain, the struggles, what do you think? Do they constantly show up? Are we always going to hit the wall at times?
Yeah.
No matter how much healing we do?
Yeah, even astrology, I'm like, you're never, this is the thing. Here's the other layer of that. I think that we are not getting away with, we're never going to make it all go away. And our friend, Christina Dam, who runs Liberate, she's somebody that always says, nothing happens without friction. There is no growth and no movement without it, period. So if you weren't being pushed on by something uncomfortable, you'd like never change or do anything. So that's probably not very comforting to someone that's in like the throes of heartache or devastation or grief. And so I don't mean to be dismissive of people's pain in any way by saying that, but I do believe that we need different things at different times. That's just been my experience so far, that one thing isn't always going to be like the thing that gets you into a better state or gets you feeling better at one period of your life might not always be the thing. You might come back to that, or you might be, you know, it's different things at different times. Sometimes I need prayer, sometimes I need astrology, and sometimes I need meditation. And it's very interesting too, because I'm such a believer in astrology because the transits are so amazing. Like it's just always what's happening. It's as above, so below, that there's always wonderful transits and challenging ones. Always, always, always. And as I was going through, I was combing the skies for the last couple of years, like a neurotic, crazy person, but no, like a passionate astrologer, looking for
like an Aries,
you know,
no,
yes, like, you know, electional astrology, right? Looking for the perfect wedding date for my friend's wedding, right? And I'm like, it's not like, oh, we're going to look in July. It's like, we're looking at the whole year and we're going to maybe find a handful or like one or two things. Like it's very difficult to find the right set of conditions that you want, where everything's out of harm's way and everything's lined up. Yes. And you know what I discovered, honestly? Like there is no perfect sky. There is always a thorn on the rose. There always is, no matter, you can get it all lined up so nicely. And there's just going to be like at least one thing that's just like, you know, and so I feel
that it rains on that day or something.
Yeah. But it's just even astrologically, like, and I trust that everything that is in existence is, in my belief, divine. So that is by divine design. And who am I to say there is no perfect sky, that every sky is perfect? And so I still like to try to surf. Like, I'm still like, ooh, where's the big wave? Or, you know, or, ooh, this is a storm. Let me not launch this now. Or like, let me just wait. The timing is so helpful, but I do, having looked for perfect conditions, they just don't exist. And so I do think we're always kind of being pushed on.
No, I was going to say Mercury retrograde. You know, it's always Mercury retrograde. If I try not to even pay attention, because if I give it too much energy, then things start to, you know, go awry with my computer.
Oh, really? You find that those tend to.
If I know about it, it's the craziest thing. So I'm like,
those happen so often. It's like 3 to 4 times a year, and just you know, to speak to that very briefly. There are certain periods where you may have Mercury retrogrades be more significant for you, but not every single one is going to land as hard in your chart. Retrograde periods are not anything to fear. Even difficult transits, we try not to fear them because they are by divine design. At least that's how I like to see them. And so it's just a new initiation into something, you know, it's just cycles.
I love that. Thank you for that. No, that's a great clarification, because everyone's like, oh, it's Mercury retrograde.
How do you work with it? What projects have you left unfinished? You know, what can you go back and review or rework or like find closure or like revive or recycle or release, all of the re's. But they're wonderfully productive time periods for those types of things.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's great. I love that. Nice shift in my perspective on that. I could talk all day with you.
Yeah.
But I do want to kind of come to a close and ask you a few questions that I like to ask everyone. And that is, first of all, what brings you the most joy in your life?
Do you know, it's so funny. My brain immediately went to sing. Yeah, that's so funny, because I don't even do that quite as much anymore as I was doing it, but to sing. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Rebecca, you have such a beautiful voice. You guys have to hear her sing. Well, we're going to sing together sometime.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll serenade everyone. No, I'm just kidding. We haven't prepared. Okay, and what do you love? What do you love most about yourself?
Ooh. I know you sent me these in advance, but I didn't get good answers. So I
Good.
am on the spot. I think what comes to mind is there is like a fierce kind of fiery quality that I have of what feels true and right within me. And that's like one of the Aries challenges, is that we aren't very good at stuffing things down. Like what's true is like it's like a fire inside you. If it's joy, you're just like, yeah. If it's like anger, you're like having a hard time like simmering it down. But I think there's a truth factor. And I think that can make us very brave. And so it doesn't mean that I've never been a coward, but I think that my willingness, or maybe not even willingness, maybe it doesn't feel so much like a choice, but my nature, my tendency to be true, to be in truth, even when it's like,
I love that.
It's so uncomfortable or inconvenient. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And what about your definition of healing?
I don't have one exactly, so let's be on the spot again. I think
what does healing mean?
It goes in cycles, right? So just progress and still being here. Like we're always, and even I think when we pass on, we still exist because energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And that is a law of physics. So whatever your definition is of that, but we are just moving forward, and there is healing in and of that. And so I suppose you can actively seek a state of wellness and move yourself into greater states of well-being or wellness in cycles over time. But it is not linear. And we may have an experience of healing in one moment, and then find ourselves later on back in a place of depression again, or pain. And I think that that's 100% normal, and it cannot be any other way. I mean, you can permanently shift absolutely out of things, but there's always more layers. And so as long as we're moving forward and in a state of self-truth, or working towards self-truth, and self-appreciation, and the ability to just be present with ourselves and make friends with ourselves in the moment, no matter what we're feeling. It's very Buddhist sounding, but I'm like, whatever is happening,
it's beautiful.
Our ability to just be unconditionally present with ourselves and in whatever state we are, I think fosters a lot of healing, and also validates that we are healing even if we don't always feel well.
Yes, I love that. What a great description of healing. Thank you. Yeah.
What's yours? I know you got to wrap it, but I've got to know.
Oh, my definition of healing. It's funny. I haven't prepared either, but my definition of healing would be just constantly learning to embrace and accept those parts of you that you push away, the shadows, the parts that we don't want, just really learning to be with them, to love, to fully accept. I think that's a big part of the healing journey, because I don't believe we can, just push it away or clear it. Some of it's always going to be there, but it's just like the embracing and breathing it in, and knowing that you are lovable and beautiful just as you are, with the good and the bad.
Yeah. No matter what.
Yeah.
And what may.
Thank you for making me answer that. That's good. Can you please tell people where to find you?
Yes. I am at sacredstarlight.com. So sacred, not secret, but SACRED STARLIGHT, sacredstarlight.com. And then on Instagram, I'm on there a lot, sacred_starlight. And I'm launching a Patreon. I have no solid plan. I didn't elect a good date. I'm just trusting. Because you can only do so much, right? You can only control so much, or be so much of a control freak. So I'll be making an announcement about that shortly as well, and that'll be like monthly meditations with energy healing journeys, astrology content, maybe some sacred singing circles. A lot of it will be online, but I also do the occasional live event at Liberate Yourself in Sherman Oaks in Los Angeles. And those are typically live streamed for people that aren't nearby. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, my friend. I've loved this chat and look forward to seeing you again soon. And thank you, everyone, for watching and for listening. And we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks,
Bye,
Jay.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Rebecca.